Everyone, it's Sam here for another week ahead forecast. Let's go ahead and jump right into the transits. But before we do that, I want to remind you that I do the breakdown on Instagram and Facebook, as well as Twitter, if you're interested in the more extended play-by-play. But as always, I've given the timestamps in the Eastern Standard in the description for the video, and make sure to follow along for the dailies that we do as well. So this week is going to look very different from last week. Much different because we have very different astral weather that's happening. So when we look at the beginning of Monday here, we have the moon moving into Libra and then conjoining Mercury in Libra, and then the moon will make a trine to Mars in Gemini. That's three back-to-back strong air aspects on Monday. So Monday is going to be great for communication, great for stimulating the mind, specifically because Mercury is involved. There's a trine between the moon and Mercury linking the heart with the head, as well as a little bit of a boost from Mars in Gemini, getting some of that kind of fire mixed with that air and feeding some of that energetic excitement. I love that. Towards the evening, we're going to get a little bit of burnout as the moon opposes Jupiter in Aries. Oppositions tend to slow us down and make us kind of pause and think, especially with Jupiter retrograde in Aries, kind of reminding us like, hey, where have we overextended our energies? And that's kind of the backlash of air, is it gives you a lot of that kind of caffeinated, stimulated lightning bolt of inspiration, but what is the energetic fuel that supports that, and do you have enough? So Monday, we might find a little bit of a slump as we move into later on in the day. As we move into Tuesday, Tuesday is kind of like our recoup day. There's only one aspect, and it's super duper late. As you can see in the description below, the only aspect is the moon in Libra making another air aspect, another air trine to retrograde Saturn in Aquarius. But that's at 8:12 p.m. Eastern Standard. So that's going to be really much kind of after the day has already happened. Otherwise, Moon in Libra does give us a really nice balanced Tuesday, the need to kind of measure and weigh our resources, and overall has that cardinal air energy to the sign, keeping us driven, but also making sure that we're keeping it light, keeping it fun. Venus ruled sign, so it is about beauty and sensual delights as well, but still in the element of air, into the mind, into kind of how we are processing mentally right now, which is much different than the energies of last week. So Tuesday is going to be kind of our throwaway day, kind of our recoup day. And then Wednesday we start to amp up as we change signs as well. So Wednesday we have the moon in Libra making a sextile to Venus overnight, which will be very good for sleep. We don't have too much fire or too much air. It might be a little bit of activity in terms of dream stuff, but a 2 a.m. trine to Venus, I think, would be nice for sleep. In the morning, though, we do have a bit of a stumble. At 6:42 a.m., the moon in Libra will square Pluto. So Pluto is our planet that represents the past, the unconscious, and the archetype of the underworld. So the moon in Libra trying to balance some of these heavier unconscious themes that can only really come up after we've had a few days of kind of rest and mental activity. We're going to find some friction early Wednesday. So just watch that Wednesday morning. Then a few hours of the moon being void of course, when we're able to detach and kind of run off of our own juice, our own momentum. And then at 1:11, love that number, 1:11 p.m., the moon will move into Scorpio. So moon moving into Scorpio starts to put water on the board as far as our elements go. Moon in Scorpio is going to pull us into our feelings, is going to get us a little bit more hypersensitive, a little bit more protective and defensive, as well as highly intuitive. It is the sign of the detective, of people who have that fixed water energy to them, where we're still in the emotional realm of water as opposed to the intellectual realm that we find Monday and Tuesday, but it is fixed water. It is a stubborn water. It is isolating, the idea of water coming to a standstill and providing that kind of discrete boundary. Okay. As we move on to Thursday, we're going to continue this trend of getting busier and busier to Friday, which is going to be kind of the climax of our week. And then we'll start to kind of tail off into the weekend. But as we move into Thursday, the aspects do start to get a little bit stronger. So we have two morning aspects where the moon will sextile the sun in Virgo overnight at 5:20. That's great. And then moving into the early morning, Mars will sextile Jupiter, a little bit of that air fire energy, but sextiles aren't super strong. They're just enough to kind of push us or pull us, but they're not really, really strong aspects. The strength starts to happen as the moon conjoins the south node on Thursday evening. The south node is our point of purging. It's our point of letting go. It's our point of what was and getting rid of that. It's kind of like just flushing the energy, which can feel kind of like stuff is being pulled out of you, but that stuff is waste, right? So moon conjoining the south node is going to be kind of a low tide time on Thursday as we prepare for the activity of Friday. To kind of heighten that, the moon will oppose retrograde Uranus, giving us pause, making sure that we're not, again, overdoing it, just like the opposition to Jupiter earlier in the week kind of gets us to check in and make sure that we're not kind of overspending, overstimulating in this case, that we're prepared for the unexpected, because Uranus is the planet of unpredictability. But Friday is going to be our big day. So let's go ahead and we'll pull up Friday and we'll talk about what Friday brings. As you can see in the center of the screen, the lines get deeper as well as we investigate that chart. So overnight, we have friction because the moon squares Saturn. Saturn is the planet of no. Saturn is the planet of boundaries. Saturn is the planet of restriction. But these no's and boundaries and restrictions do help us to shape and form the content of our lives. Saturn saying no is kind of like a parent saying no. They're doing it for your best interest, right? But it's up to you to kind of test that boundary and say, hey, is this actually for my highest good, or is this your opinion? Spoiler alert, Saturn is always right, just as an FYI. So we also have a very watery start to Friday morning, getting a little bit of slipping and sliding happening as the moon makes a trine to Neptune. Neptune is the planet of sleep, of dreams, of mysticism and blurred boundaries. At its worst, Neptune also rules things like addictions and slipping into fantasy and retreating into a world that is not your own. At its best, Neptune can make us a little bit sleepy. Neptune can make us a little bit foggy-minded, but also give us that otherworldly vision, kind of like an Alice in Wonderland type feel to it. So an odd way to start our Friday, but we're all a little bit mad here, so who cares? The moon in Scorpio will then sextile Pluto, grounding us a little bit, keeping that subconscious theme rolling, and then we get to our first real strong square, where we get into moon squaring Venus and Leo. So Venus will be changing signs on end of Sunday. So this is kind of her first kick to be like, hey, you've been in Leo a little bit too long. It's time to get practical. The moon in Scorpio is that intuitive moon where it's like, okay, it's time for change. We need Venus representing our relationships, our ideas of love and pleasure and satisfaction to change. They can no longer be in the extroverted sign of Leo. Instead, we need to rein ourselves in and get control over our spending of resources. And after that square, after that tension, we have the moon shifting into Sagittarius at 6:40 p.m. Eastern Standard, the mutable fire sign, where we have passion returning to the skies. We are no longer in fixed water. We are now in mutable fire. Sagittarius is the sign that really allows us to spread enthusiasm as well as information. So it'll be a little bit more energetic than we had with our moon in Scorpio on Wednesday, Thursday, and early part of Friday. However, the big uh-oh with Friday is Mercury opposing Jupiter. So Mercury as planet of the mind, which was really stimulated on Monday and Tuesday, then opposes Jupiter, which was, oddly enough, kind of opposed by the moon earlier. So a little bit of foreshadowing for what happened earlier in the week as the moon in Libra opposed Jupiter on Monday. Now Mercury in Libra is going to oppose Jupiter, so creating a more intense understanding of what it means to have overstayed your welcome, what it means to truly balance as opposed to strive for something that is unattainable, and how do we create the backing off without extinguishing the passion that inspired us in the first place. It's a good transit to pivot, but it does require us to slow down and evaluate how we should change forms and redistribute resources. Okay, moving into Saturday, we start to slow down. Friday was the intense day, so now we're going to start to slow down a bit. And if you look at the aspects on Saturday, we start off with fire trine and then an air sextile. So lots of energy happening Saturday morning, needing to wake up a little bit early, needing to get stimulated and get going. Fire under the butt on Saturday would be a great day to get things done early, like early. However, then things start to slow down as we get friction built throughout the day. So 8:22 a.m. So we only really have like a good 2-hour window between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. And then Moon hits Mars with a square. So our passion is just, or not a square, but an opposition. So Mars's energy, the kind of oomph that we need to do all these activities is going to be opposed by that moon in Sagittarius, and that's going to create a little bit of a drain, of a scattering of focus. And then also as the moon moves to square the sun in Virgo at 2:07 p.m. Eastern, this is going to be kind of where we pump the brakes and be like, oh, well, maybe we're not as heated as we thought. That fire trine first thing in the morning got us feeling like we're going to have all this energy. And then as Saturday moves through, and as we start to really contemplate the long-term effects of whether or not we're truly passionate, the answer is slow down. The answer is hold your horses. The answer is to not overdo it. And then Sunday, we have a really fun balance as we start to move into the end of our week, but also get into some change, right? So we start off our day with a sextile to Saturn, starting slow, starting steady, and then we have a little bit of friction in the afternoon with the moon squaring Neptune. So a little bit of ambiguity, a little bit of missed details. Maybe there's some confusion or miscommunication that happens on Sunday afternoon. But as we move into the evening, things start to get very, very interesting because Venus starts to change signs and gets really involved. So the moon in Sagittarius will make a trine to Venus and Leo, right? So a strong fire trine, getting that last bit of Venusian passion while she's in Leo. And then the moon changes signs into Capricorn, into our earth element, into still driven because it is cardinal earth, but from fire, the sign of the element of activity, into earth, the element of stability. And then Venus also changes from her fire sign of Leo into Virgo, which is her least favorite sign of the zodiac, opposing Pisces, her favorite sign of the zodiac. So Venus, goddess of love, abundance, and sensual delights and relationships, she who is most lovely, she of the perfumed smoke, is going to be stepping into the sign of the manager, the sign of getting things done, the sign of to-do lists, Virgo. That will be happening technically on Monday at 12:05 a.m. Eastern, but we start to have our increase of Earth energy in the skies doubling with now the sun in Virgo, moon in Capricorn, Venus in Virgo, and that's just going to compound our Earth energy at the start of the week, slowing us down and getting us grounded after a really nice kind of incline and decline from our week, with Friday being the peak. Okay, so that is your astro weather for the week. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me. Let me know how your last week was, and as the week progresses and you start to look and see how these transits are playing throughout your life, let me know how they manifested for you. I'm really interested. And you can always follow on social media, which I've linked below, to keep me posted and to read a little bit more in depth on each day's energy as I post it. But until next week, may the stars be ever in your favor.